Okay, wonderful. Thank you all so much for being here. Um, with me co-hosting is my friend Melanie from New Renaissance Bookshop, representing the bookstore. Thanks for being here, Melanie. And our goal in this is a part two. We did a part one where we covered 99 pages of The Body Keeps a Score. We're going to keep going and focus on, as always, solutions for trauma, and also recovery from trauma. And so we're gonna do an angel meditation to start with, and kind of establish a space and get into a space where there's a lovely held space with the angels. Then we'll go into parts of the book. Melanie's found different quotes in the book, and we'll discuss those a bit, and with the goal of solution in mind. And then we'll have a third activity toward the end that will reveal itself as we work. Okay. I'm glad that you're all here. Okay, so I invite you, we'll do an angel meditation here for perhaps 20 minutes or so. So I invite you just to relax and be at peace. So we'll just gently breathe in. Wonderful. So thank you, Mother, Father, God. Thank you, archangels and ascended masters, for the perfect grace, perfect clarity, and perfect peace that is here for each of us and all of us right now. Thank you to the angelic realm, the elemental realm, our ancestors, spirit guides, animal guides, and guardian angels. We celebrate tremendous peace, wonderful joy, and incredible good being here right now. We thank as well the angelic realm, the elemental realm, our ancestors, spirit guides, animal guides, and guardian angels. We celebrate tremendous peace, wonderful joy, and incredible love being here with us and for us right now. We acknowledge all parts of ourselves. We acknowledge this moment. We acknowledge this gathering, this held space. We acknowledge the presence of the angels, goddesses, and guides who are here to support us. We allow new things to happen, good things to happen, and for healing to happen, and letting the healing be simple and elegant and peaceful. And we recognize that we're here and that we're ready for something different to happen, to feel better. We allow that to happen right now. And we recognize that everything is in place for the highest possible good to happen. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. And if we could just notice you right where you are, being supported by the furniture that you're engaged with, be that a chair or a sofa or a bed. And we'll just gently breathe in and just notice yourself being supported right where you are. And we'll just notice the you who has shown up, the you who is here. And we'll just gently breathe into that and recognize the you who is here is dynamic, that the you who is here matters enormously, that the you who is here is seen, is heard, is cherished, and is deserving, that you are deserving of greater good, that you are worthy of love. And it's safe for these things to integrate, it's safe for incredible good to happen, and it's safe for wonderful clarity to be part of this experience right now. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. And as we notice the you who is here, we'll just identify the you who is here as your conscious adult self. And we'll recognize that what an adult does is to gather information and then to make informed choices based on that information. So we'll just gently breathe into this opportunity to gather information, to have insight, and to recognize the you who is here as the you who could allow change to happen. And as we breathe into that part of you, we'll just gently acknowledge all parts of you, the child selves, the adolescent self, the critical self. And we'll just breathe in, and we'll get into this as we work further, but just introducing, which may be an already known aspect of ourselves, which is the three aspects of the child self: the wounded child, the compliant child, and the defiant child. We're often different ages, and it's going to be different and individual for everyone, but we'll notice that perhaps the wounded child is pretty young, the compliant child might be a bit older, and the defiant child being perhaps the oldest. We'll just identify these three aspects as the wounded part of ourselves, the wounded child, being the one who has a hard time with letting go of the things that have happened. And that's understandable because they're a child. So we'll just identify that part of ourselves. And the compliant child being the social phase, the adjustment that is made out of trauma of how to get by, which often involves suppressing emotion, suppressing desire, and getting by. Then the defiant child who thinks everything is crap and that they're right. So we'll just identify very simply that we have all three of those elements. And if we can notice in this moment right now that we're going to honor all three elements of our child selves. And we'll notice also the presence of Archangel Michael, who's the angel of protection and clearing, the presence of Archangel Gabriel, who's the angel of communication and relationships. We'll also notice nurturing goddesses like the goddess Kuan Yin, who's the goddess of compassion. Just gently notice that help is here. And we'll just breathe into that help. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. Wonderful. And we'll just notice with the perfect engagement of nurturing goddesses and angels and beautiful guides with all three aspects of your child selves. The wounded child being nurtured and fed and attended to. The compliant child being invited to take off their social mask, which is exhausting, and to rest, to be fed, to perhaps take a nap. And for the defiant child to be acknowledged and to let the anger move, perhaps through play, perhaps through movement, and to recognize that it's okay for things to get better. So we'll just notice these three aspects of yourself being acknowledged and being cared for. And also allowing the clarity of who you are to expand. That you're not one big ball of emotion, that there is your conscious adult self who's engaged with this. There is your adolescent self. And we'll welcome the adolescent part of you to experience the world and to express themselves creatively. That they're not stuck. And we'll just notice the tender care administered to these three aspects of your child self. And as all this happens, if we could notice Archangel Gabriel, who once again is the angel of communication, messages, and relationships, if we could notice Archangel Gabriel walking around the wounded child and the compliant child and the defiant child and your adult self, and creating fresh paths, creating new thoughts, new beliefs, new dynamics, to release the dust, to release any constriction, to release anything that's no longer serving us, no longer serving you, and to welcome incredible good into this moment right now. And this may sound evident or obvious, but it's being said. If we could just notice it's okay for us to have these distinctions. It's okay for us to attend to or witness the aspects of your child self being attended to and being identified. It's okay for healing to happen. It's okay for incredible good to be present. It's okay to have a fresh start. Wonderful. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. Breathing into all this good and all this goodness. Breathing into incredible care and incredible love. And knowing that wonderful good is present right now. Wonderful. So if we could just take in a nurturing breath. And if we could notice, for every aspect of you, there being a lot of pillows, a lot of cushioning, a lot of softness. So if we could just breathe into all that, and we'll notice that all aspects of you having a lot of pillows, a lot of comfort, a lot of care, and dedicated care. And we'll just notice the attention administered to all aspects of you. And perhaps there's an interruption of everything being hard, including hard surfaces and hard decisions and hard dynamics. And we'll notice the physicality of pillows and the metaphor of pillows, which is everything's buffered, everything's softer. That there's the opportunity for rest and relaxation. There's the opportunity for comfort and clarity. And we'll just breathe into all of that. And with beautiful joy and wonderful peace, we'll just take in a really deep breath. And we'll breathe in with and for the aspects of our child self. And for yourself and for the three aspects of your child selves, we'll just breathe in fresh air and we'll exhale stagnant air. We'll breathe in fresh air and we'll exhale old air. We'll breathe in fresh energy and we'll exhale old energy. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. And we'll notice the nurturing goddesses, Kuan Yin, the goddess Freya, the goddess Bridget, Mother Mary, Lady Portia, figures who are known and maybe unknown. We'll just notice there being care provided. we'll just gently breathe in. And we'll very simply notice the goddesses, the nurturing goddesses, asking the different aspects of you, the wounded child, compliant child, defiant child, what they would like to do, giving them a choice, giving them agency. Would they like to take a nap? Would they like to have a snack? Would they like to play? And maybe there's a yes to all three. We'll just notice a sequence. Maybe a snack and a nap and then play. We'll just notice. And noticing that there is no at all right or wrong, we'll just notice that each part of you has permission to make a choice. Each part of you has permission to change energy. Each part of you is seen and heard and cared for right now. And each part of you is special. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. And we'll breathe into incredible care and to incredible love. And we'll just gently breathe into all that. Breathing into all this goodness and all this peace. Breathing into incredible love and wonderful joy. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. Wonderful. So we'll notice there being attention paid, and that attention is positive. And if we could notice the elegance and power of the distinction between your adult self and your adolescent self and the three aspects of the child self. And we'll notice that it's okay for your adult self to have more room, and that your adult self will solve anything that's happening adult-wise and deal with adult issues and adult tasks like adult relationships, adult jobs, adult conversations, and that it's safe for your adolescent self to express themselves and to play and to have fun. It's okay for the wounded child aspect of you to be healed and to know that they are seen and heard and loved. It's okay for them to rest and to play. It's okay for them to be a kid, including to be a little kid. It's okay. And we'll notice with the compliant child, it's okay to release that social mask, that they are loved exactly as they are, that there's no need for performance or suppression, that they are seen and heard and loved. And it's okay for them to have a snack and to rest and to play. That it's okay. It's okay for them to not be on duty. And we'll notice the defiant child. It's okay for them to be acknowledged. It's okay for them to recognize that anger is a hard energy to maintain. And it's okay for, let's say, 1%, 5%, 10% or more of that anger to move. It's okay to be acknowledged. It's okay to be sad. And it's okay to feel relief. And we'll invite that part, the defiant child, to rest, to have a good snack, and to do something fun. So we'll just gently breathe into all of this. Wonderful. And as our conscious adult selves, if we could perhaps have any kind of stretch, be that moving your arms, be that rolling your shoulders, be that moving your neck. And we'll just notice that we're moving energy in simple ways and creating room for something good to happen. Wonderful. So we'll just gently breathe into all that. Wonderful. And we'll do one more thing here. We'll let our conscious adult selves have a voice. And as our conscious adult selves say our own names out loud, I am Mark. I'm not anybody else. And speaking to the adolescent, the wounded child, the compliant child, the defiant child, we'll say out loud, what a good job you're doing. I see you. I hear you. And I love you. I'll handle all the adult stuff. I want you to have fun. Wonderful. We'll just gently breathe in. And it may be very subtle, maybe like a flash, it may be felt, maybe atmospheric or energetic or emotional or mental or all the above, or something different. We'll just notice that there's space, that there's spaciousness, and the positivity of all parts of ourselves being recognized. So we'll just gently breathe into that. And with great grace and great peace and great love and great joy, we acknowledge the angels, the goddesses, and the guides. We acknowledge all aspects of ourselves, and we celebrate life as we thank the presence of Mother, Father, God, and all the archangels and ascended masters. We thank as well the angelic realm, the elemental realm, our ancestors, spirit guides, animal guides, and guardian angels. We celebrate wisdom and peace and harmony and healing right now. We celebrate individualization and great peace being present. And with wonderful joy and incredible love, we ask for this or something better right now in all directions of time. And so it is. Okay, wonderful. Good work, everyone. Good work. Wonderful. We'll just breathe in. Okay. Great. Wonderful. So we'll just notice that clarity of self, that it is you, the conscious adult, who's here. And for those who will listen later on YouTube and different platforms, that's the you who is here. Okay. Wonderful. So Melanie has found some parts of the book that we're going to focus on. She's found specific quotes and different things to focus on, and then we'll talk about those. Okay. Wonderful. Great.
So the first passage that I have pulled is from page 112, if you do have the book with you. And it is on the page kind of in that bottom middle paragraph there. So it's, we get our first lessons in self-care from the way that we are cared for. Mastering the skill of self-regulation depends to a large degree on how harmonious our early interactions with our caregivers are. So, how do we come to recognize what didn't happen for us as children, what we didn't get, maybe, and how do we go forward as our adult selves and make it better?
Usually through contrast. And this is where it's when we go to in our extended families, cousins' houses, aunts and uncles' houses, or friends, and we recognize how things are working elsewhere and how people behave. And I remember distinctly being uncomfortable around happy people for a long time because I thought it's like I do, I am by the book, this book, and just seeing where that what does it make me feel safe, and when people are relaxed, part of me is going like, well, what is anybody watching the door, you know? And just seeing in that where that contrast is helpful, and it comes as we mature, which is why that the us who are here, that we are the age where we are, why we're engaging with this, that this is unlikely to happen in childhood or in adolescence. That's when we get a bit older and we have a sense of what didn't happen or what can happen, and we start to individualize ourselves, our identity, and become ourselves, and to recognize what lives we want to lead and what has gotten missed, and we get to fill in those blanks. But it's understanding the instinct that we have to bond deeply and powerfully um, with our caregivers, with our parents especially, yeah, and with the people who are around. All of which sounds very simple, is recognizing as, essentially as we get older and let's say our parents get more real, our grandparents get more real, and we recognize where they're from, what did they experience, and we see the role then of history and culture more clearly, and we could recognize like, okay, that's interesting. On my mother's side of the family, it's like, my grandmother and my grandfather, my mother's parents, were genocide survivors. And it's just seeing the legacy of that. And that took me into my 30s to understand like, oh, okay, that's not that thing happened to those people. That's right here. And so when we get to individualize, when we have the ability, I think there's an elegance to this where we can have the capacity to solve problems and to figure these things out. And here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are, indeed.
On that same page,
Mm-hmm.
see, actually, I guess it's not the same page. It's the next page, 113. Kind of on that second paragraph there, it says, Bowlby saw attachment as the secure base from which a child moves out into the world. Over the subsequent 5-decade, research has firmly established that having a safe haven promotes self-reliance and instills a sense of sympathy and helpfulness to others in distress. From the intimate give and take of the attachment bond, children learn that other people have feelings and thoughts that are both similar to and different from theirs. So this gets into a bit about primary attachment, and the idea of attachment to caregivers in general. So would you care to maybe expand a bit on what primary attachment is and its importance, and how can we then go about repairing broken or disrupted attachment?
I suspect that's the answer I just gave to the last question, which is, um, it's understanding how we're wired. That we are wired to love our parents and to revere our parents, and to seeing then once again what gets missed, what gets distorted, and getting into then of a thing my longtime therapist introduced me to was the concept of developmental trauma, which is, there's a book called Healing Developmental Trauma by Lawrence Heller that New Renaissance has, and it's easily accessible. But that book defines developmental trauma as having an absent, be that physically absent or mentally checked out parent, one or two parents who are not there, or not caring for you, or not capable of caring for you. And that's from being in the womb to 3 years old. And it has a chart on page 3 and a chart on page 5 that illustrate in like bullet points like what happens to the psychology of and the wiring of that infant. And what happens is, as opposed to being loved and adored, that the baby, the infant, starts to perform or do things to please the parent. So the relationship is essentially backwards. So, and that's most of us, I think. And what I found in this, in my experience with this, one, it was very comforting to know that my experience was validated by a book, and that a guy I've never met named Lawrence Heller understood my experience. And it's a seeing where we could do that for each other and for ourselves. And in this moment right now, of recognizing that our wiring is a bit different when we have that experience. And it's how we are slowly and peacefully rewiring to get into a space where we know that it's okay for good things to happen. It's okay to be seen and heard. It's okay to be loved. And that we're doing all those things. Does that answer the question? Okay, good.
I think so.
Right on. I think
there are no right answers.
Yeah, there are no right answers. I want to, one point about what I do as an intuitive. The best thing I could possibly do as an intuitive who's talking to a lot of people is advocate for kids. Straight up, there's many stories, but this happened late last year at a certain place in a certain city, where there was a young father who was panicked. He was having an anxiety attack in front of me because he wanted to leave his wife and infant child. And I told him about the developmental trauma, like what would happen to his kid. And he calmed down. And why he calmed down was it took it out of a fight or flight situation into a role, into a greater reality where trauma gets everything small, and it just made everything big, which is there's a reason why this is happening. It's okay for him to engage with a child, which may sound elemental, but it's a choice, especially for men. Very little is asked of men in our culture and in most cultures, and that parenthood is not done at ejaculation, and that we get to engage with that. And then just seeing where it's okay for us to advocate for our child selves and to acknowledge what didn't happen and to make things better. And that acknowledgement, and I think perhaps a lot of us have done that in different ways, but acknowledge like, wow, that was really messed up that didn't happen. And maybe we do talk to our younger selves of like, I'm really sorry that happened. That wasn't fair. And just giving them voice, which is incredibly helpful. And a tool to do that is, and I'm talking about this because I've done all this stuff and I continue to do it, is if I'm really upset, I will talk to my younger self, my like little Mark essentially, and let him talk. And that's very helpful. Like that made you feel bad when that happened. Yeah, and just letting him talk like a kid. And that integrates, but also gives him a voice. And that agency is powerful. And to listen to ourselves in that. And it's not one way this goes, but that's an element of it that might be really helpful. Yeah. And also, I know there's lots of stuff with this, drawing, any kind of creation. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Okay, so my next quotation comes from page 121, and it's kind of that final paragraph before the section break there. And it's, if you have no internal sense of security, it is difficult to distinguish between safety and danger. If you feel chronically numbed out, potentially dangerous situations may make you feel alive. If you conclude that you must be a terrible person, you start expecting other people to treat you horribly. When disorganized people carry self-perceptions like these, they are set up to be traumatized by subsequent experiences. So how do we begin to cultivate that inner sense of security that we may be needing to avoid further traumatic situations? And how do we also go about changing negative self-perceptions that we might be holding on to, especially that we've inherited maybe from our parents or other experiences in childhood?
Good question. I think also that paragraph defines how Princess Diana died. That she was getting off around being around incompetent people, and maybe a really good example, maybe a bad example, but I think that's what it looks like. Is that this is where advocating for our own experience of safety, and be that asking others to help make us safe or doing it for ourselves, and just starting to establish a space where we understand what it is to be safe. And that might be bringing consciousness to unconscious situations where we don't often think like, am I safe right now? Sometimes we do, but often we don't. But just noticing the moments when we are relaxed and regulated, and it might be halfway or 20%, that we notice that there is some space in that, that it's not black and white. And when we start establishing space, and this that's where things can change, and this does get into, and everyone who's you know done stuff with me in the past, that we did this in part one of our book group. We could do it again right now, which is, let's come back to our conscious adult selves, and we could just say that out loud. I am Mark, and I am my conscious adult self. And we'll just breathe in for a moment, and let's just take a moment right where you are. And I'm just going to talk through where I am. So there's a window. I could see the neighbor's driveway. There's a screen door. I'm on a second level, so there's no one up here, and I would hear them if they did. There's a dog, Rosie, downstairs who would bark if someone were approaching. That door is open. My friend Dee went to the store. I heard her close the door and her drive away. So I know that I'm alone in the house with the dog, and you're all here, but I could hear everything, and that I am safe right now. I'm in a familiar space where I know what's happening. So I could just breathe into that. So maybe we could all just do that right now, just ascertaining where you are, just looking around like, okay, there's a door there, and using your senses, what you see, what you hear, what you sense, what you feel. Are there other people around? Are there animals around? And we'll just notice our experience, our decades of experience on the planet, and let them be valid, those experiences. And we'll just breathe into that. And we could just say out loud, I am safe right now. And we could amplify that with, it is safe for me to be safe right now. And perhaps we could notice, this Archangel Michael, the different chemicals in the brain shifting, perhaps getting into, rather than cortisol, serotonin moving, and just feeling that shift. And this is how we heal. And it's recognizing that it's okay for us to have agency, to recognize that we are safe, rather than expecting others to do that. And as part of households, it's just, well, two things with that thought, which is, so if there was a betrayal of a role, let's say in your childhood, by the people who are meant to take care of you, it's hard to have that trust with others. This is where our own agency is very helpful. But it's also okay to develop relationships with others that are based in trust, be that with another person or people or an animal or animals. And that we're creating a bridge into something different. And we could just keep coming back to that. I just spoke to perhaps anyway early today with someone who lives somewhere who has by the book PTSD, who had a traumatic thing happen recently, and I could instantly hear in that person's voice that they were okay, because I've heard them not be okay. And perhaps why they called me was for that reflection, which is I was able to say authentically, "You're okay." And it's recognizing for all of us that we're okay, that we're okay. And that's okay to acknowledge also that messed up things happen in the past, but those things don't define us always. And that we are healing, and we're witnessing everyone healing right now, which makes things feel unfamiliar. But it's okay for us to keep progressing. Did that cover the bases on that? On that
Yes, it
question?
did.
Okay,
And I had a question, I guess, to pose to everyone else,
sure.
not necessarily to answer verbally, but just something for you to think about in your own time, which is what does security mean to you? What does it feel like? What is present in your sense of security? And that's going to look different for everybody of what's important for you feeling safe. And that's just something to think about when you're experiencing it, or just when you feel safe or when you feel unsafe. And that way you know what you need, or you can start to have a better conception of what you might need. Okay,
Yeah.
so
And just one last thing, it is safe for us to choose that, to be like that it's okay for us to have the agency to be secure and to recognize that we are secure. Yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
All right. The next passage comes from page 130, and it is kind of near the bottom of the page here. And it's, when you try to talk me into being more reasonable, I only feel even more lonely and isolated. And it confirms the feeling that nobody in the whole world will ever understand what it feels like to be me. So this quote comes from someone in the book who Vander Kolk refers to as Kathy, and they are in a group therapy session, and she's just been sort of blaming herself for a lot of her childhood traumatic experiences. And Vander Kolk tries to argue with her, sort of, that it's not fair for her to blame herself because she was just a child. And this is what she responds with. And it fundamentally shifts how he then deals with people when they're telling them how he feels. And I think that's a really important lesson. So again, I'm going to pose something to all of you, not necessarily to verbally answer, but just to think about in your own time. To think about a time when you may have felt similarly to Kathy here, when you felt badly, but you were unable to articulate or maybe even know what you needed to feel better. This could be when you were all alone, when you were trying to speak with other people about how you were feeling. And then looking back on it now, what behaviors, actions, words, if any, gave you even a little bit of comfort? What was helpful and what wasn't helpful for you? And you can also do this in looking back on an experience when you were trying to help someone else and maybe looking at the way they reacted to how you were trying to help. And this just allows us to better understand ourselves and the people around us, and be able to be more, I guess, hyper focused, or to recognize what might be helpful in certain situations and for certain people, and especially for ourselves, even when we can't articulate maybe what we need. Um, and then for Mark, my question surrounding this
Mhm.
is, how do we show up for people without inadvertently invalidating them? And how do we be a better, deeper listener?
Um, to listen and to acknowledge their experience and to recognize what is going to be that um, the things that sound like cliches in spirituality but are essential, to see them, to hear them, to acknowledge them, and to get away from a right or wrong thing, and to acknowledge their experience, and to recognize which, this is putting on the spiritual counselor hat of like, how old are they, who's talking, What matters right now? And this is where logic and reason aren't helpful all the time, but it is a sense of um, acknowledging what happened. I find that this thing, things that sound dead simple that I've learned to do in doing readings for over 20 years is, if someone tells me that someone died, the first thing I say is, I'm sorry that happened, because it might be the first person to ever say that to them. But it's also acknowledging their experience, that must have been hard, and then getting into a space of where we're not trying to fix anything, but there might be a space to acknowledge. And then what can happen to bring comfort to the situation? What can happen to make the world that much bigger so they don't feel stuck? And that might be just listening. It might be reassurance. It might be doing nothing. It might be saying, do you want a glass of water? It might be saying, like, wow, that was really hard. I'm sorry that happened. All these things are helpful, rather than, well, you really ought to. Can anyone tell me, like, when's the last time advice worked? And this is something, that we could help each other with, of, the validation and the encouragement that likely wasn't there. So it is, there's a grace to that, but it's also, I am Mr. Fix It, and it doesn't help, you know and so is this seeing then, how could we, especially for interacting, how can we validate someone else, how can we validate each other, and meeting each other where we are, and recognizing there's right now on the planet, a great commonality of experience, which is we're all healing. All the traumas on the surface, we're healing right now. Some people are not wanting to deal with that, which is fine, but it's okay to deal with it and to let things get better. And to, I think, to the point in the book, do you mind, Melanie, just reading again what Kathy says? Do you mind just reading her
Yeah.
response? Yeah.
So she has even longer of a response than that, but I can just read the section that I just read there,
Mhm.
which is, when you try to talk me into being more reasonable, I only feel even more lonely and isolated. And it confirms the feeling that nobody in the whole world will ever understand what it feels like to be me.
Mhm. So we could just ask, what is she actually saying? And there may not be necessarily an answer to that, but she's asking something of him, while and also making a statement about herself, which is the her who is in the therapist's office, to receive help. And when he's trying to solve, it doesn't help. But when he holds space, it helps. When he acknowledges her, it helps. When we say something like, wow, that was really fucked up, that helps. And we get maybe ask the question, what do you think would make it better? You know, yeah. What do you think, Melanie?
I can confirm
Mm-hmm.
from when I am feeling especially anxious, and someone goes, "Well, you don't need to worry about that." Or they go, "Why? There's no reason to worry." I'm like, that wasn't helpful. I know there's no rational reason for me to be worried, and I know you're trying to help, but that just makes me feel worse that I am worrying about it in the first place, because I'm like, well, it's not normal for me to be so worried about this.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I worried about it?
Mm-hmm.
So I agree. I think holding space, and sometimes what people need every time changes. So you just, as the listener, whether it's you listening to yourself or listening to somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
important to recognize that what somebody needs every time they're experiencing something might change.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be tuned into that and
Mm-hmm.
accept that sometimes you'll try something and it doesn't work and you don't feel better, and that's okay. And you will eventually feel better and you will find something that helps.
Well said. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's also for everyone here coming full circle to um, the different aspects of ourself. It is identifying, and this I think is a muscle that we work over time, which is which part of us is upset, which part of us is anxious, which part of us isn't used to having a say in a situation, which part of us feels helpless or hopeless, and which part of us can solve a problem or can make a change. And it's just recognizing these are muscles that we are not taught and that we evolve over time. But this is why we're here, is to put these things on the table and to perhaps practice them. Yeah. And thanks for sharing your experience there, Melanie. Appreciate that.
All right, do we have time for one more?
Let's do one more, then we'll do
Okay,
something
one
positive.
more.
Yeah.
All right, let's go all the way to page 169 here.
What?
Do it. Making progress.
What?
And it is kind of up near the top of the page.
Mm-hmm.
It's social support is a biological necessity, not an option, and this reality should be the backbone of all prevention and treatment. Recognizing the profound effects of trauma and deprivation on child development need not lead to blaming parents. We can assume that parents do the best they can, but all parents need help to nurture their kids. So knowing the importance of social support on healthy development, how can we all take action in our everyday lives to better protect and nurture future generations, to stop trauma in its tracks, basically? How do we show up for such a large but vulnerable population, even for those of us who don't have kids or maybe even aren't around kids that often? How can we advocate sort of for them to stop future trauma?
That is a good preview for what we'll do next week. We're Trisha Martin Owen, who has a preschool, and this is why I invited her to come, which is we all, because everyone here to a person had, stuff happen in childhood, that she is walking her talk in creating conditions for kids to be kids. And that, it's, I think in one of the different titles for school, like they're outside, those kids are in the mud, that they're doing stuff and that they're allowed to be kids. So what we can do is to recognize, and this I think takes some work of recognizing what everyone's contending with. And this gets into the 4 agreements, not take anything personally, and to recognize where we are and where other people are. But also this is where having intention. Thank you for all my interactions being powerful and positive. Thank you for clearing my energy and clearing the energy of all my environments. That we have an intention, we could show up as our adult selves and be encounter people, and to recognize where we could support each other. And perhaps getting into the space, this may not be, this is a muscle that I'm working on, which is to reach out to people when you don't feel great. That's not a super strong muscle for me, but we do stuff like this and it's all right here. So it's this recognizing what are our own needs in that, and where could we not project on other people. We could see the context of the times, and to be, as much as we can, to be kind and to encourage and to acknowledge each other. Those answers may seem simplistic, but this is where we get into grace and flow. Do you want to add something to that, Melanie?
Not much. I
Okay.
just think attention goes a long way with ourselves, and then especially with children. It can mean the world to, it feels really good when someone is paying positive attention to you in a healthy way. And I think showing up even for kids you see for 1 second and they wave at you or smile or whatever it is, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. It's one of the key lines in Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. Attention must be paid. Yeah, wonderful. Good. Thank you for all the quotes, Melanie. Wonderful. As we head toward a conclusion, why don't we just take in a breath? Let's just come back to the you who is here, your conscious adult self, and all the different aspects of you. We'll just breathe in. And why don't we, let's acknowledge ourselves. Okay. Let's acknowledge ourselves. Let's just say our own names out loud. I am Mark. I acknowledge my experiences. And speaking to yourself and all the different aspects of you, let's just say out loud, I'm so sorry those things happened. That must have been hard. And I know it was hard. They won't happen again. Everything's going to get better. And you're doing a great job. So we'll just breathe into that. And let's just include the angels. Thank you, angels, for helping me in every part of my life. Thank you for all of my needs being met and exceeded. I celebrate health in all ways. I celebrate living a healthy life. I honor all parts of myself. I am right on time. I'm always doing my best. I am seen, heard, and supported. Thank you, angels, for being with me always. I honor all parts of myself. I ask for this or something better right now in all directions of time. And so it is. So we'll just breathe into that. You just feel everything being bigger, the presence of the angels, showering the space that you're in with love, helping everything to be clear and for everything to be better. And with this clarity, this peace, be that 1% or more, we thank the presence of Mother, Father, God, and all the archangels and ascended masters. We thank as well the angelic realm, the elemental realm, our ancestors, spirit guides, animal guides, and guardian angels. We celebrate tremendous peace, wonderful love, and incredible joy being here right now. We're so grateful. And we're so grateful for all the good that is here. We honor every single aspect of ourselves, recognizing the positive changes that are here, recognizing, acknowledging the fullness of our experiences, and letting more good happen and more healing happen. And with great gratitude and great peace, we ask for this or something better right now in all directions of time. And so it is. Okay, wonderful. Good work, everyone. Great, wonderful. Great. Why don't we take a moment just to check in if anyone has anything they want to share? Any insight, any how you're feeling?
Are you going to keep recording that?
I was going to. I could stop. Yeah. Yeah. We'll let it go. Hang on a second. And for those who are listening in the future, thanks for listening. Appreciate your presence.